Welcome, everybody. This is Beer Guys Radio. A few minutes late, technical difficulties, but we did it. We're persistent like that. We're here. Side note, guys, I noticed from looking at our Instagram stream, we got about a 20-second delay getting out to Instagram.
Oh,
I imagine it's
okay.
probably that with most of the timer's still running here on Instagram right now. It'll catch up eventually. We'll get there, but we're going to jump right into it, y'all. If you have any comments, questions, let us know what you're drinking. Say hello. Put them in the chat. We would greatly appreciate it. But with that said, guys, let's jump into the show. Welcome, everybody. This is the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thanks so much for coming and hanging out and having a beer or two with us. A little bit of conversation on the craft beer world, having a good time with it. I am Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Tim. I'm doing great. It's been one of those crazy weeks. It's been a crazy day, but how are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good, Brian. Yeah, crazy weeks. It's I've had my share. I got some new kitchen knives, Brian. Super sharp. Got them from a Kickstarter thing, so I got a really good deal. But I dropped one and it hit me in the stomach. The sharp side too. So I got a nice slice that I had to bandage up. So that was fun. That's been my crazy week. Work's going well though, so that's nice. Been closing some big deals there. It's a roller coaster of emotion.
So not many knife fights at work, just at home with yourself.
Not well, technically, since I work from home, I guess that would count, right?
Oh, fair point.
Yeah.
Fair point. Yeah.
So yes, Brian. Yes. Yeah.
Both.
Mo, Mike, Nate, how are you doing?
Stab free over here.
That's good.
Yeah, it's halfway through the week. Happy to be here. Happy to have all the blood inside my body.
That is the
Tim,
recommended
you're
location.
the fellow who got me into knives. You and Brian helped get me into knives.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that you're stabbing yourself. You're having a little
pop
action.
You know what? I was actually examining them because like I said, I just got them, so I was checking them out, and this was a big chef's knife that was actually bigger.
And we just lost Tim.
Oh, that's fun. Maybe we'll just give it a second before he gets back in. Hopefully everything will catch up. We may need to restart this one. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Sorry, people. We're having some technical difficulties. We are going to attempt to fix this. It looks like Tim may have lost all of his connection or even had his computer reboot on him.
There he is.
He's coming back. It was, yeah. Okay.
Difficulties. I'm going to call out StreamYard right now, which is the service that we use for this. And they changed ownership, and service has been poor, StreamYard. So if word gets back to you, they would not approve my post in the Facebook group complaining about it. So they're ignoring the issue. And if anyone has any suggestions on alternative formats, this is really user friendly, very easy to use in that.
Yeah.
And it worked good for 3 years under the other owners, but since it switched over, something's different.
Up until recently, I think it's been great.
It's been great. Yeah, that's why we use it. I mean, we pay a decent amount each month to use the premium version of the service, and it's worked well, but last 3 months, I guess, problems with the audio files on the back end once we're done and everything. But anyhow, enough rambling about that. I'm just frustrated and getting it out a little bit. So let's try this again.
All right.
Welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thanks so much for coming and hanging out, having a drink and a conversation with us. We appreciate it very much. Always a good time hanging out here and just having beers, conversation beers. I am Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt. How's it going?
It's going well. It's been a crazy day. It's been a crazy week. How you doing, Tim?
I'm pretty good, Brian. I'm pretty good. That's making it through. Work's been busy. I had an incident with a brand new kitchen knife I had, but I made it through that. So, just moving on, living life, having a good time.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Mo, Mike, Nate, how you doing?
Doing well, having a good week. Excited to be here. and looking forward to talking beer with you boys.
Yeah, man. It's going to be a good time. Brian, we got out a little bit and goofed off a little bit last weekend. Finally got out and there was a beer symposium, a craft beer symposium here. We have a place called the Wing Cafe, and they do an annual craft beer symposium and get a few of the state's brewers together, talk about their business, the industry, and that. So that was a good time getting out
Yeah.
and checking that out. And we got some pinball in, and it's been a minute since we were able to do that. So it was nice to get out and play some pinball. Two of our favorite, I think it's safe saying our favorite machines, Medieval Madness and Monster Bash. Two kind of retro, about the 90s, I guess. Not super retro, but retro-ish there.
I guess that would count as retro.
Yeah,
That's
30
what,
years, right?
30 years? I mean, that's
Yeah,
classic at least.
yeah.
So
I think that would have to be there, but I had a good time with that with our friends at Schoolhouse Brewing. More info soon, but we're actually going to host a charity pinball tournament with Schoolhouse in October. So mid-October. More details on that soon, but having a good time. Tyler, cheers. Cheers. Tyler tuning in from Texas. Always good to have him hanging out here with us. Having a good time. But Brian, beers of the week. What are you drinking this week?
So I'm finishing up my pregame beer. It's a Summerfest, Tim, and I'm drinking it not only because it's good, but because I was triggered today. I saw somebody on social media saying
Okay.
the spooky season is upon us. I'm like, no, the heck it is not. It is not
Yeah.
spooky season. It is still freaking August. It's still like 80 plus 83 degrees out, so it's not
Too
as warm as
spooky.
it has been. It's still summer. This is not the spooky season, so people need to knock it off with that. So I'm fighting back by drinking summer beers. And
Okay.
yeah, so I'm following
Fight
that
the
up.
power, Brian.
Exactly. And I'm following that up shortly with a Sweetwater Rowdy Peach IPA, which Sweetwater was kind enough to send to me. I appreciate it, Sweetwater. Looking forward to that. The description is it's a peach forward non-bitter IPA that matches Atlanta United's rowdy soccer crowd. So it is intended for the soccer folks to enjoy at a tailgate. And my first exposure of it was at a tailgate before the Atlanta United game. And I'm looking forward to getting into the canned variety because I've had it on tap. Now I get to have it in can. And another one I'm kind of happy to get. It's not the Parish I wanted when I was looking around, but it's one I've never had before. So I'm having Parish's Baby Ghost. It is a smaller Ghost than a lot of them. It's a 5.5% New England IPA, double dry hop with Citra, and I know it's going to be good. So I'm looking forward to getting into that sometime at the end of the evening. So that is what I'm getting into. Yes.
What parish were you looking for, Brian?
What is I forgot the name of it. Ultimate Ghost, or what was it?
Infinite
The new one
Ghost.
that came. What is it?
Infinite
Ghost. I looked around hoping to find that. I wasn't able to run out right away, like back in the day, and try to find some. But I did look around a little bit, and I found this. I'm like, well, it's not the one I'm looking for, but I'll take it, and it's good. I've actually had one already, so I knew it was going to be good.
So no surprises today, huh?
Not really.
Infinite Ghost get to Georgia?
Well, Nate said he saw it.
Yeah. Speak up, Nate. Speak up.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, it did. I bought a couple of cans and it was wonderful.
Okay. There you go. Good stuff. Nate, on the topic of drinking beers, what's your beer for this week?
So today I am drinking surprisingly another stout. And from Off Color Brewing, I've got their Coffee Dino S'mores.
Okay.
Stouts. So it's a Russian Imperial Stout, and they brew it with coffee from Sump.
So years ago, when Dino S'mores, I don't know if it just hit the scene or I just discovered it, but there was the regular version and then the coffee version. And usually, without fail, if there's a coffee version of the stout, I like it better than the base version. I like coffee in the stouts, but Dino S'mores was one exception to that rule. I didn't like the coffee version as much as the base. However, that being said, I believe I found it on draft recently with the coffee in it, and it was fantastic. So I don't know if my palate changed or the beer changed or a little column A, a little column B, but the coffee Dino S'mores was tasty. Brian, I think we were hanging. You had it too, didn't you?
Yeah, I've had it a few times over the years. I want to say that there were early on recipes versions of it that weren't quite up to snuff. I think they weren't quite there. So I think that they just needed to dial in the recipe. So the first round or two we had, that makes sense. But in the past couple of years, the times I've seen it, which is I've seen actually the coffee dino s'mores more than the regular one. I
Yeah.
keep thinking, oh man, okay, I'll take that. It's like then I drink it. I'm like, oh no, that's right. It's good now. It's not like it used to be that first time around I had it. So I think it's good. I think it's worth getting. I do when I see it, and I'd love to see more from Off Color around here. But that's the one we usually get. So I'm not complaining. Not complaining at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. Not mad at it. So for me this week, Brian, I'm actually in harmony with you on one of the beers because Brian is the sharing is caring type. I also have some of Sweetwater's Rowdy Peach IPA. I did not get to go to the tailgate, so I get to enjoy it now.
Right
For the
now.
first time. For the very
Nice.
first time. And Brian, I got a question for you. You kind of know my stance, or you very much know because I preach it each year on Oktoberfest beers.
Yes.
And just as a matter of principle, I won't touch one until September 1st, just because I don't think July or August is the right time to be fest beering. And we've chatted about this on our Discord server with some other folks, and I've been told basically to go pound sand, that they're delicious, and I'm going to drink them when they come out. And I can't argue with that. It's your life. Live it how you want to live. That being said, Brian, we're getting close. When will you give in and say, okay, we're rolling into fall, it's spooky season and all of that? Do you have a break point there? Is it a temperature? Because those temperatures are dipping. According to my little device on my desktop, we're at 80 degrees right now, which means we'll be in the 70s soon. And that's, especially considering we were mid 90s not that long ago, we're headed that direction. And if this impacts your opinion at all, I went to the drugstore today and they have the Reese's pumpkins out there. I actually had a whole aisle of all the Halloween stuff. And I was at Walmart, which is seriously something I do once every 5 years. I had to get my oil changed, so I went there and get that. And they had, just all the scarecrows and the cinnamon broomsticks and all that you hang around. So when is it, Brian? Is it temperature based? Is it date based? Is it a little of both?
Well, I think a little of both, but just out of solidarity, because I think it's reasonable. You said not before September 1st on Oktoberfest. I'm like, I think it's reasonable. I don't really need to be getting in. I probably would have, were I not thinking about it, had you not made a stand on it and me generally think and agree about it, I probably would have started having Oktoberfest around this time, give or take a week. It has cooled off a little bit. They're everywhere, and I do like the style, but I I don't like how much it's rushing, and I definitely not August. Never gonna have anything Halloween thing.
Yeah.
I don't even really want to see Halloween stuff until the beginning of October. I'm like, let us have Oktoberfest first. Let us do all of the stuff involved in that, and then we could start looking at that after we've had our fill of Oktoberfest beers. Now you can start talking about spooky season, and
Well,
by then it's not going to be spooky if it's warm out. If I can go out in shorts and feel like I'm getting hugged by a giant fluffy warm duvet every time I go outside, that's not spooky. I'm sorry, it's not spooky season. I don't know what you guys are crazy.
sounds pretty
saying
spooky
this.
to me. A
Yeah,
duvet running around hugging people. That's
that
kind of spooky.
that's just normal for me.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
The thing that gets me about it is it's really an avalanche once it starts. I mean,
Mhm.
as soon as they give in, Christmas stuff's going to be out. I mean, I know we're August, but I don't know exactly what the date is. But I went to Walmart one time as they were moving the lawnmowers and weed eaters and stuff out, and they replaced them with Christmas stuff. So we went straight from lawn mowing season to Christmas
Mhm.
trees, and it's crazy. I got to admit, though, Brian, although I've taken my firm stance on the Oktoberfest beers, I was pretty tempted by that Reese's pumpkin that they had there.
Were you?
So that almost took me into spooky season with that, but
I was gonna
I
have
resisted.
Yeah. No, I was gonna have I was actually gonna do the whole Christmas in July thing I had in the fridge before it died, and it's still dead. R.I.P. my fridge. Um, don't even get me started. I had
I
a
won't. I promise.
yeah, okay. I had I had a Christmas beer or two from last year that I put in the fridge like in June. Like I was like, "Ooh, I want to get into that still." And like, you know what? Let me hold off until July so I can say Christmas in July. And I was definitely going to do it. Then I forgot about it. So I
Yeah.
feel like I missed that window. I'm not as opposed to the Christmas beers just because they'll frequently just big quads with a lot of spice to them, and when I'm in the right mood, that's a perfect beer. I haven't been in the right mood for it. That's probably the reason I didn't drink that Christmas beer. So
Okay.
yeah, stouts are for
I'm just
summer.
not in the
I don't know.
mood.
Christmas beers, not so much. I don't know.
I do think that the spices and stuff they add does make that does make a difference. I mean, and
Mhm.
seriously, me holding out for September, it actually makes me look forward to it, a
Yes.
little bit more. So
Yeah.
I stay strong. It works out,
Yeah, I
man.
mean, hey,
It
good
works
things
out.
come to those who wait, and Tim, you're
That's
waiting
right.
in
That's right.
solidarity. I'm waiting.
I'm gonna
Um,
wait for the good beers. That is it.
I
And
I do
then
agree with Brian. It is partially temperature and partially time of year. I
okay,
think it make
fair
even
enough.
though even though fall doesn't start a full month from today, I still associate September 1 with being like the gateway to fall.
Fair,
The
fair.
trouble is forecast for Wednesday of next week is mid-90s again.
Yeah.
So temperature, it doesn't really make sense to like hinge everything on temperature because Georgia, like a lot of places in this country, just does not care about weather.
We're in the Southern US, so I have been in shorts and a T-shirt on Christmas Day before
Mhm.
and sweating. So it wasn't like me just saying, "Oh, I'm gonna wear shorts," just being rebellious. It was hot, and I say hot, probably mid 70s, and for Christmas Day, that's pretty darn hot.
Maybe we need a transition where the first week or so of September is fest beer because it's the lighter, the
Mm,
Okay.
lighter, crisper one.
Okay.
mhm.
I see
Then
where you're
after
going.
we get halfway into September, we've kind of warmed up into it. Then we start getting into those Marzens. Yeah,
The mid-month
then
Marzens,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah,
and then
like a
we
little segue
immediately start
action.
drinking Christmas beers and skip all
pounding
of the pumpkin
quads.
stuff. I do
Oh,
got to
yeah.
say I am going to buy early, probably every year going forward, the Christmas beers because some years I don't know why they'll sell out of ones I want to get. Like by the time you get close to when we would do a Christmas show, they're already sold out. I don't understand how that happens, but they hit early. So with the Christmas beers, I'm more likely to buy them early and maybe just sit on them because of how we've missed out on some really good ones because
Mhm.
I don't know. People got excited, bought them, and drank them all really early. So by the time Christmas came around, nobody had Christmas beer anymore. So yeah,
And those are all I mean, you can easily hold all of those a month, 3 months, 3 years, what have
Yeah.
you.
yeah.
So they'll be just fine. It's not gonna be ruined by
Um,
the time you get
Over
into
on Instagram, the Let Us Drink Beer blog has been chatting with us, and he uh, is saying that he likes Brian's idea about the fest beer segue into the Marzen.
There you go.
So we've already got a follower for that idea.
You got a supporter. Got
I'm
a
all about
supporter there.
compromise. Let's ease into it. Ease into it.
That's
The
fair.
temperature's coming down a bit. We get a little bit, yeah, ease in.
Yeah,
Yes.
Best beer,
it's
Marzens, and then 2 months of quads.
And then I
Is
guess
that the plan?
yeah.
yes, or we could mix in a little. I think Dunkel used to be historically an Oktoberfest. So
Ooh,
at the end, we could mix
Okay.
in some Dunkel and then make the jump over into the quads. I think that's our trajectory. That will bring us great success, Tim. I believe.
If you don't no, I'm gonna mess it up. I was gonna say something about fail to plan to fail. You fail to plan, you plan to fail, but
Yes.
you're taking care of that. That was much sloppier than it sounded in my head, but I think everybody gets the point there.
Yes.
We made it through that. But anyhow, spooky season is almost upon us. We got like 2 weeks, and then boom, it's gonna be totally spooky out there. Yeah, so they say. So they say. Brian, moving on right now. So the NB2A, which is the National Black Brewers Association, and they joined us on the show before in the past to
Yes.
talk about what they're doing. But there's some equipment grants out there and some cool things happening. Some of the grants have been awarded, and there's some equipment going out to some black breweries.
That's right. That's right. So the National Black Brewers Association has announced two recipients of their equipment donation grant program. The recipients were selected from grant applications that were submitted May through June of this year, based on who would, and they chose it based on who would benefit most from the donations. The first recipient is Cajun Fire Brewing in New Orleans, Louisiana, and they're getting a 20-barrel brew house that was donated by Russian River.
Very cool.
Additionally, Vinny
Wow.
Salurzo has offered to assist with the installation however he can. I'm not sure if he's going to come out personally and do it, but at least offer them advice and whatnot in terms of installing it. So that's a pretty significant thing to get.
That's a substantial investment. So shout out to to the NBTA and to
Yeah.
Russian River and Vinny. That's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, and the second recipient of the equipment grant is Montclair Brewing in Montclair, New Jersey. They will be receiving a canning line that was donated by Optimism Brewing. Both breweries have been in operation, both Cajun Fire and Montclair have been in operation for over a decade, and the new equipment will assist them in expanding their businesses because I think they're kind of at a spot where they're kind of plateauing with their current equipment. In both situations, the donating breweries just saw greater benefit to giving it to these people who could really use it. And one of the breweries said we could have sold it and put a little of that money in on our balances and whatnot. It wouldn't have done too much for them, but it would help these guys out tremendously. So it just made sense to donate it to them. So it
Good
was
stuff,
it
man.
was pretty good stuff. I'm really happy to see this kind of thing because let's be
Yeah.
fair, with the way the industry is right now, selling your equipment may not be the hottest thing you could do with it. You maybe not get your top dollar for it. And if there's breweries out there that could really be helped out, this might be the better thing to do. And I think you get a tax write off on it too
Probably
in the
would.
process.
Yeah,
So
donating
everybody
equipment
wins
like
with
that.
this. Yeah.
Well, the thing is everything's expensive right now. We've
Yes.
seen breweries closing, and rent is a big thing. Yeah, a
Yes.
lot of these breweries have been in areas, and it's not just the new folks. We had a brewery in Atlanta close that was just short of their 10th anniversary. It's a we've had them close that have been around 5-6 years. 25 years that have closed,
Mhm.
and it's expensive out there. Ingredients are expensive, equipment is expensive. So you've got a tough economy out there all the way around to be a brewer. So it's cool that if they're in that situation, and I'm sure they're thinking, well, we could grow if we had a little, this equipment or this equipment, but the money to do that. So having breweries that are in a position to be able to do that, it's always cool to see the way the beer industry comes together and helps each other out. So, yeah. But Brian, on a not so positive note, talking about everything being expensive, there is news in on beer prices, and it's not awesome.
No, it's not. If it seems like beer is more expensive every single time you hit the store, you're not crazy. Beer is number one when it comes to inflation. It's outpacing the inflation of everything else. According to Brewbound, the price of beer is up 4% or was up 4% in July compared to an overall consumer price index increase of 2.9%. So 4% versus 2.9%. Beer also out-inflated all other beverage alcohol, which increased by 2% on average. And the increase was a little lower at bars and tap rooms. So if you were going to a tap room or a bar or whatever to drink, you didn't see it quite as much, but it was still up by 3.1%, which is still greater than 2.9%. So even at the tap rooms, it was out inflating inflation. So yeah, it's not working out well. I don't think this is going to help the industry either, really, in the long run, especially when we're not doing gangbusters in terms of sales. It's not going to
Right.
help. Yeah.
Right. I did check your math while you were talking there, and 3.1% is more than 2.9%.
Oh, good.
So
I'm never sure if
I
I'm
did
right on these
verify
things.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what
Matching.
we're here for, man. That's what we're here to check and balance. Brian, I want to talk about my beer that I'm drinking here.
Okay.
So again, I've got the Sweetwater Rowdy Peach IPA, and I'm a fan of Sweetwater's IPA. I think it's an underappreciated beer. You don't hear a lot about it, and it's surprising for me being not an IPA guy, but I think the malt and the bitterness and everything are really well balanced. And I say that because I get Sweetwater IPA in the base of this. Like you can tell it's a Sweetwater IPA there. The peach is juicy and sweet and tasty, but it's a candy peach flavor to
Mm.
me. It's not like a fresh juicy peach. It's more like some peach candy in here. I don't necessarily dislike that. It tastes nice in the beer, but just an observation. What are your thoughts on that, Brian?
Yeah, that was my thing
Are you
from.
into the canned version yet? Have you made it to that one yet?
Oh yeah, I am
Is that what
drinking
you're
it.
drinking
Yeah,
now? Okay,
I got
gotcha.
it. I got it.
All
I
right.
got it rocking and rolling. I opened it a bit ago. Yeah, that was my thought when I first had it. And I'm like, hey, this delivers on exactly what we're talking about. It's a solid IPA. It's got peach flavor on it. It does not taste like real peach, but it does taste like a peach candy or
Peachy.
something like that,
It's
or like a
peachy.
peach syrup. What's that?
Peachy. It's
Yeah,
peachy.
yes, it is definitely peachy, and it's good. I mean, I'm not angry at it at all. And if you're drinking this at a tailgate, I think this would be a killer drink, especially warm out there. That peach, just everything about that says warm weather and having a good time. So I'm not mad at it at all. the thing is, I've had beers with real peach in it, and sometimes that peach comes off tasting like it's been cooked. And I don't think I would like this as much as if it tasted like the some of the peaches I've had in other beers. So I'm just gonna
So
say that.
I have thoughts on that, Brian, or experience on that. You know probably where I'm going here. You may not, but you will in a moment. We did a peach version of our saison many years ago, and that was kind of our flagship beer, if you want to call it that. I mean, if you're a home brewer, do you really have a flagship? But we brewed that recipe in many variations several times, and we did peach one time, and I had been watching a cooking show and they were making a strawberry ice cream. And he said he likes to have, the real fresh fruit in it there, but for the intensity of the fresh fruit flavor, that freeze dried really brought the flavor to the
Freeze
party
dried.
there. So we actually bought a can of freeze dried peach chunks, which I think they said was equivalent to like 5 or 7 pounds of peaches or something like that. And
Wow.
we put it in a 5-gallon batch of our beer, and it tasted like biting into a juicy peach. It tasted like fresh peach. We let a brewer here try it that they had a beer that was a peach beer as their flagship, and when he tasted it, I don't remember his exact comments, but he was basically like, "How'd you guys get this flavor?" Wanted to talk about it
Oh.
and that. Now, the way we did it may not be feasible on a commercial scale. Probably be super expensive, but doing the homebrew version, that was good. And I don't remember who it was, but there was a brewer on recently that I made the comment about the freeze dried fruit, and he basically told me I was wrong. And I forget who that. Do you
Yeah, that
recall?
was Fonts of Flora. That
That was
was
Todd
yeah,
Bolera, wasn't
Todd
it?
Boer.
Yep, sure
I was
was.
thinking about that where he said, "No, no,
Yeah,
if you have fresh fruit, that you're." And I can't. I
I
mean, I
can't
can't really
argue with
fight
him.
with the guy because every time I've had his beer, I'm like, it delivers on the flavors it
He knows what he's
promises. So
doing.
he knows what he's doing. I think he's getting better ingredients than we have access to as homebrewers. I gotta tell you though, that the freeze dried is an absolute game changer because I tried that in that, and I've tried it in a few other things, and it's always in the back of my mind if I'm ever looking to infuse a great deal of. I'm totally going to do this in a cocktail eventually, probably. Figure out a way to infuse something, maybe a vodka or something. I have no idea, but anyway, that's in the back of my mind. It's such a good tip. I'm glad you saw that, and it really made that a great beer. So
It did. It was good. And you
it
know
should have
what?
been a gold medal winning beer. I don't think it
It
was,
should have
but
been.
yeah.
It should have been. And again, Todd, I respect what he does. I love his beers. So, if he tells me something about brewing, then I'm going to take it as gospel because obviously he knows how to execute there. But the freeze dried did work very well for us and gave us a nice, fresh, juicy peach flavor in our saison. So it worked out. It worked out for us.
I think it would work well for anything like strawberry or any of the lighter flavors, anything that's
Sure.
hard to infuse into a beer. So that's something to keep in mind, home brewers. Little tip from
Yeah.
us.
And strawberry's a tough one because a lot of
Yeah.
times it ends up tasting like unripened.
Yes, the
When the
green.
sugars ferment out, you taste like green strawberry, and actually, that's something we've talked with brewers about too. Strawberry is a very hard flavor to get accurately represented in a beer without, the sugars get eaten up, by the yeast in there, and then you've got a green
Mm.
strawberry flavor.
Now I want to go get one of those swing top 32-ounce growlers and get a beer in it, drink a little of it off, throw a bunch of
Throw some in there. Yeah.
strawberries, freeze dried or dehydrated strawberries in there, and let it sit overnight in the fridge. Well, when I get a fridge,
Oof.
I'll let it sit overnight and then drink it the next day and like turn my whatever IPA or whatever it is into an even more tropical and strawberry one. So
Do it. Do
yeah,
it. That's we've got.
definitely
I
going to
was
do
going to
that.
tell you, Nate. We also had a comment on the Facebook video last week after our live was done, and there's people anxiously awaiting the results of your beer cocktail experiment. So
Oh,
just
okay. Yeah.
keeping you on your toes there. That there are expectations set, Nate. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
totally did not forget about that,
I
and
know.
will
That's why
Not at
I
all.
was like, I know I'm going to remind him here because we got to make sure that this happens. Absolutely. Well, Brian, Omega Yeast, which big yeast house, they make a bunch of different yeast strains, which again, it's been talking about our homebrew, and it's been a minute since we've homebrewed, and there were not as many options out for yeast when we were heavily into homebrewing, but there's a lot of them. Omega's been one of the big ones. It was really, some unique and interesting stuff, but they have been bought by AB, but not that AB, right?
That's right. Yeah. Did they start up like around the time we were home brewing, like within
I
a
think
year or
they
two of
were
that?
one of the ones that we had, like, White Labs, Y
Yeah.
yeast, and then there were a few strains from Omega you could get.
Yeah. Cause like I'd never heard of them. And suddenly everybody was talking about
Yeah.
one of their sour strains that I think it was theirs. Anyway, yes. So Omega Yeast, AB Mori North America has announced that have completed the acquisition of Omega Yeast Labs. And who is AB Mori, you ask? They are the global yeast and baking division ingredients division of the International Group of Associated British Foods. So the AB here stands for Associated British Foods, basically, not Anheuser-Busch. Their reason for doing this, the reason AB Mori is buying them, is to strengthen and accelerate the growth of their AB Biotech Pinnacle brand of specialty brewing yeast. So they have they've got their foot in that business as well. We haven't homebrewed in years, but apparently they've been known in the beer community for a while for their crisp, sour Lachancia yeast. I don't know how to say that. It's a strain that was sourced from a
Lachantia?
wasp.
Okay.
Yeah, so a crisp sour that they got off a wasp, which is intriguing. I would totally brew with it. I want to make a mead with it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. They also own Fleischmann's baking yeast, which is an interesting thing. So founders Lance Shaner and Mark Schwartz will be staying on. They're the founders of Omega Yeast Labs, and they will be continuing their work under AB Mori and AB Biotech umbrellas. So
Okay.
they will continue on doing what they're doing, just with a new name and more funding, I suppose, or resources.
I wonder how many of these yeast manufacturers are into more than just brewing. Like, you look at least from what I know, like White Labs and Y yeast, they're brewing yeast, but that's the only place I've ever had to use them. Like, there's a dry yeast manufacturer, Lalamond, I think may be the way they're pronounced. But I found out that I have a friend that works for them, and he mentioned that he works for their baking division. So he's doing yeast
Hmm.
for the baking industry. And I'm like, oh, I think Lalamon was known better in wine for wine yeast, but they did make some brewing yeast. And yeah. So I thought that was interesting. I wonder if any of these others, like the ones we're most familiar with, dabble in anything other than beer.
Yeah, that's interesting. I see Fleischmann's, and isn't that the yeast we used to make the
Yeah,
mead? Is
that's like
Joe's ancient orange mead recipe used
it is.
Fleischmann's yeast? So
It
we've
is.
been using their yeast we did for a
Yeah.
while to make mead for a few years. So that's pretty
Fleischmann's
cool.
is kind of just the gold standard for your basic
Yeah.
baking yeast. I mean, if you go to the store, you're going to see Fleischmann's, in your grocery aisle there. So, but yes, it did. That was what was recommended in the recipe. And the recipe we used, the idea of it was, you're a brand new beginner, you have no idea what you're doing. Here's a simple recipe that's going to produce tasty results. And it was tasty enough for us, Brian. We never moved on to learning anything more advanced because it produced such a tasty product that it was fairly rich, high in ABV, and pretty sweet. It stayed pretty
Yes.
sweet using that brewing yeast. So if you're someone that likes, the drier meads, and some folks do, but I like them sweet. And the ones we made really were like, you drink it like a cordial. You'd put it ice cold and have a small pour. You're not going to drink an 8 ounce or a 12 ounce of what we were making.
I think the genius of using Fleischmann's yeast is it's not a very efficient yeast at doing
It's
that.
not. No.
It's enough. It's good enough at what it does to produce a fair amount of alcohol, but it leaves a lot of sweetness behind.
Plenty of
And
sugar there.
that's
Yeah.
the brilliant part. And you can just let it go forever, and it just gets better with time. It's amazing how much that improves, and it becomes something that goes from being okay, this is fine, to something like, how did you do that? That's really good. So yeah, just time,
Yeah,
man.
especially for as simplistic as the recipe is, it's pretty amazing stuff there for sure. Brian, more brewery closures. We hear about them all the time, man. This is a big one. This brewery's been around a long time. Cambridge Brewing, after 35 years, has announced that they are closing.
Yeah, they just announced this week on social media that they're closing for good. They were part of the group that came up in the late '80s with the likes of, Deschutes, Great Lakes, Brooklyn Brewery, Goose Island, North Coast, just to name a few. There's the list is even longer. I think they started in 1989 technically, and a lot of these guys were '88, but they were right there in that same period, and that's quite a milestone to make it to. Reportedly, Cambridge was the first commercial brewery to produce a Belgian-style beer in the U.S. don't have any way of verifying that, but that's what they claim. I believe them. I'm not surprised by that. With 35 years ago, I don't think anybody was doing that. No specific reason was mentioned for why they were shutting down the brewery. I don't know the brewery personally, but I saw in the pictures it appeared that it might be time for the people that running it to just retire. Take it easy and stop doing all the manual work of brewing. I guess I don't know. Just speculation here. The people in the area will still have ample time to stop by and enjoy some beers. The brewery's final day won't be until December 20th. In the meantime, they will offer seasonal menus, and they will still do their fest beer and all the Oktoberfest stuff. So definitely go out and hang out, check it out. I think they probably have selected it so they make it to their 35th year because they want to make that milestone, make sure they hit 35.
That's
so
understandable.
yeah
Hold on there. 35 is a big thing. And Rod J here, he commented, he said they had some solid brews. Not a brewery I was familiar with, but definitely one long time. They've been around a while.
The amount of comments and likes and everything else on, I think it was Facebook that I saw, there was a ton. There's like a lot of people like knew and loved this brewery. I'm like, I'm kind of sad. I've never been to Boston actually, so I'm a little sad I've never been there. I'm like, I guess there's still time for me to get up there, but it sounds like they were quite the institution. It's always sad to see the institutions like that go. But
well, if you want to make it to see them, you better get going.
Yeah. Should I leave right now? Because it'll take me a little while to get there.
It's already spooky season, Brian, and they're closing in December. So, you definitely want to look to stay on top of that for sure.
Yeah. December 20th is just around the corner. Like
just around the corner. Any day now. Well, Brian, I would like to give a shout out to our amazing show sponsors. Help us keep doing what we're doing here. And I personally want to thank our friends at Terrapin Brewery Atlanta. They're at Truist Park, home of the Braves, and they're making good beers there. Something new on tap every week. Good food there too, Brian. Barbecue there from the Fox brothers. So, go check them out. Grab them. No matter what beer season it is, they're going to have something for you there. I bet. I haven't been recently to see, but I bet there may be a fest beer on tap there, even though it's not the 1st of September. They probably have one on tap there. So go up there, check them out, tell them the beer guys sent you, and thank you so much to Terrapin for sponsoring the show.
Yes, and summer continues despite the industry's very best efforts to fast forward us into fall. But we've also seen the weather back off a few degrees from the 90s we had earlier in summer, like we've mentioned earlier. And that means it's nearly perfect patio weather right now. We're right there. And it's hard to find a place that patios harder than Truck and Tap. But what are you going to drink on that patio? Well, here are my picks for the week. At Woodstock, I'm going to stop by the beer window and order an Allagash Saison as my walking around beer, because you can do that in Woodstock. You could sit on the patio, or you could just walk around the neighborhood enjoying a beer. So I'm going to do that if I'm there in this kind of weather, which is much nicer than it has been. It's been forever since I had an Evil Twin beer, so my pick at Truck and Tap Duluth is called Christmas Eve at a New York City Royale Suite. It's a marshmallow, coconut, vanilla, and cocoa nib pastry stout, because stouts are for summer. I'm like, I don't really need another reason for that.
Now, wait a minute. That's, I'm not going to interrupt your Truck and Tap thing, but that's totally contradictory to your spices and stuff. No, I'll shut up there. Go ahead.
Okay. At the Alpharetta location, I'm going to try New Realm's Blackberry Smoke Lager. It's a light lager that contains no blackberries and no smoke, but it is a collaboration with a band named Blackberry Smoke. I've never actually had it. I've heard good things, so that would be my pick. And I am also happy to see Oscar Blues Old Chub on tap at Truck and Tap Lawrenceville, so I'm going to have that when I'm there. It's so hard to beat a good Scotch Ale. If you'd like to check out the tap list for yourself or see what events are happening at your local Truck and Tap, you can find it all at truckandtap.com. And thank you to Truck and Tap for your support.
Absolutely. Brian, you mentioned that Blackberry Smoke beer. So Mitch Still, previously Stone, one of the co-owners, brewmaster there at New Realm, he's a big fan of Blackberry Smoke. He digs all that kind of music, and he was telling me one time that he had a band back when he was in California that they had a brewers band there. And I've asked him if he's going to get one started up here, and he's like, "Oh, I'd like to." So it sure would be interesting to get the brewers in the band. They might even let Scott Hedin join and play.
They might.
I'm not 100% sure, but maybe they would there. But I want to try that beer too, because I haven't had it. And again, if you don't know the band and you hear Blackberry Smoke, then of course, you may think of smoked blackberry beer like I did, because I had heard the band name, but I just thought of smoked blackberry beer, which actually, even though I'm not a huge fan of smoked beers, I'm kind of like, I'd try that. I'd
I would
sip that,
too.
Brian.
I would as well. And I also thought that before I realized there's a connection because I don't know the band. But when you brought that up, when we were getting early on, we got a tour of the facility at New Realm here in Atlanta. And didn't he show us that he had a guitar in one of the office so you could sit around just kind of noodling
He
on the
did
guitar?
indeed have a guitar in his office. Yeah.
While he was pushing buttons and monitoring everything. They've got quite a facility there. That's pretty
It's
impressive.
impressive.
But yeah,
Yeah.
enough time that he could just rock on his guitar while he's brewing. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. It was cool, man. Well, Brian, research beer in space. We heard a lot of things about beer in space. There was they've sent yeast up there a couple times into space and then brewed with it, but they continue seeing what they can do with beer in space or space beer, and more news on that this week, right?
Yeah, so researchers are investigating. So it's technically not space, but researchers are investigating how brewing beer is affected by microgravities, which I guess would be what you'd be in a shuttle, or maybe if you had like a moon base or something like that. What the effect would be? It's not really space; it would be microgravity. And it's they're not doing this just so they can drink beer in space. Fermentation has been a key part of humanity's survival on Earth, and so they anticipate this being necessary going forward. And the processes involved in the fermentation also have applications in pharmaceuticals and biofuels and a lot of other things. So there's a lot of chemistry involved that is beneficial with this. But brewing experiments done by the team at the University of Florida's Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences has led to some very interesting results. Microgravity did not actually impair yeast fermentation, which I think a lot of people expected it might. In fact, microgravity appeared to speed up the fermentation process. And I speculate that maybe it's easier for the yeast to travel around through solution and do their business. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not a scientist. And they also claim that it may actually produce higher quality beer than regular gravity produced beers under fermentation. The article notes that it had unexpected positive effect on yeast genes that control ester production levels. In this case, and so esters would be like your bananas and some other interesting flavors that might be on point or off point, depending on the beer you're brewing. In this case, it seems like they were able to produce drier lagers with fewer undesirable esters, brewing them in microgravities than they could at regular gravity. Now, it could just be they were bad brewers, but I'm not going to get into that. It's important to note that they did not taste these beers, only take measurements of the compounds in them, which they were able to compare to measurements of beers with undesirable or more estery flavors, specifically lagers. So the claim here is microgravity may produce better tasting beer. And I'm not 100% sure I believe that, but it may produce drier, cleaner lagers, is my thoughts based on reading this.
Okay. All right. Well, we can throw the science out there and see what happens. It's just generally fun to mess around with stuff like that.
Yes.
Beer is part science, part art, part voodoo, black magic, and it's interesting to toy around with the different things. Like I was talking to my cousin yesterday about technological advancements just in our lifetime. And we've gone from, if you're a Gen Xer, you've gone from a point where computers didn't exist or they didn't exist in the household to where they're commonplace. So we know both sides of that life there. Nate, do you remember life without computers as part of your life?
Yeah, I do remember that. Or at least I remember only having one central computer for the entire house. And,
See, that's
having
just
exactly my
one. That's
point.
like
He
not
says
having any at
yeah,
all.
I remember when we just had one computer. That was so my equivalent of that, Nate, is I remember when we had one TV. And when we got a second TV, it was a 10-inch black and white TV in the basement. My monitor on my desktop right now is bigger than what our main TV was for
I
many
believe it.
years. So I'm going to shut my mouth because I sound like I'm coming from the 20s or something like that. But you know what? Nate actually helped us make our point there. He's like, well, I remember we just had one computer for the whole family. That's how much life has changed. We've gone from no computers to this, and brewing really as well. I mean, for hundreds, thousands of years, it was pretty much the same. There wasn't a whole lot of innovation in it. And, I'm not saying that, you know what, Americans did a lot with that because we were messing with things and not a pat on our own backs there, but we wanted to get crazy with it. All of these years and years and years and years, there was a lot of traditional brewing. You had your Belgian brewing, you had your German brewing, Czech, and there wasn't a whole lot of innovation. I mean, I guess the Reinheitsgebot probably, helped with that to stifle that a little bit. But we get over here and we're throwing more hops in things, or, we're making things more bitter and we're doing all this crazy stuff to it. And you've got companies either finding new yeast strains or revitalizing ones that had disappeared. And so whether it's technology or beer or the combination of technology and beer, there's just been so much happen in the last 50 years, and it will be cool to see what happens the next 50, because I'm sure they're not stopping. They not slowing down. So just the things you can do, like with us, Brian, when we're talking, maybe 5 or 6 years since we brewed heavily, home brewed. And even in that 5 to 6 years, the amount of yeast that are available out there, the hop strains that are available out there, there's just so much more. We didn't have Kvike yeast when we were home brewing, so we never really got a chance to dabble with that and see what it could do. And that is another thing that you don't need the temperature control like you do with a lot of other yeast. So people are able to brew who may not have temperature control systems and get better beer out of it because the yeast performs better in that. So it's just a beautiful world, Brian, is my point.
It's not just the yeast. I'm like, that is a big thing. The world is your oyster right now in terms of brewing. But just this week, I don't have a full article about it, but they just gave a name to an experimental hop at Yakima Valley. It's called Crush now. I guess it's very popular. So that's an entirely new thing that wasn't around. And that's just within the past couple of years, finding it and then giving it a name and making it elevating it to a full release hop. So they're still finding stuff. And the I don't remember which variety it was that produced the oaky qualities in hop, but that was a whole new thing that, man, I would have messed with that a lot when I was homebrewing. It's amazing how much stuff continues to move when you think how little there is to brewing beer. Oh, it's hops, it's malt, it's water, it's yeast. That's it. It's no, there's every one of those things is still expanding and changing. So it's kind of crazy that there's still all of these options and all this new stuff to try and do.
And you make a good point, Brian, with the hops that tasted like wood. Not all innovations are good.
That one seemed to work well in some applications and not as good in others. Yes.
If you want woody notes in your beer, there's many better ways to get them. So to have them in the hops was not a great place. And, obviously we have not seen that hop take off, but whether it's great and it takes off and it catches on or not, it's cool to see the things, that they're doing there. I mean, a hops that produce, woody barrel flavors. That's pretty cool.
In the right, maybe say amber, like a hint of
Brian,
little wood in there
on top
of it. You're we're not gonna barrel age this. We're gonna to make it less
expensive, throw a little woody hops,
but also deliver that little hint of wood. That would be smart. I mean, I'd drink an amber that use that hop in it because I think those would be complementary.
Okay, Boomer, drink your amber with your woody hops in it. There.
Ambers are cool again. I think maybe
are they? Are they back to being cool now?
I'm making that up. I don't actually know if they are. I want them to
Ambers
be. I would like
cool
them to be cool again. Yeah.
Bring back saisons. Bring back Brett IPA. Brian, as far as IPAs go, a Brett IPA, I'm on board with. I did enjoy those when
those were great. Oh my God,
they were a thing. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
I remember Monday night releasing one as a collaboration, and the crowd that came there and how quickly they sold out of that thing. That was a Brett IPA. Nobody even makes them now, but they couldn't keep it in stock. It sold out immediately. How amazing is the change in taste? That is nowhere now. I kind of missed that.
Yeah. Let Us Drink Beer commented, Let Us Drink Beer blog commented over on Instagram. He said barrel fermentation is the way to go now. And I know Barrique in Nashville does some barrel fermentation and aging there. So they're doing crazy stuff with sour lagers, barrel aged lagers and all of this. So they've got some cool stuff going on. And everything I've tried from them has been pretty dope, Brian. Pretty dope. No cap.
Yes, that's what I hear. That's what the kids are saying these days about
Yeah.
Barrique. I've been there. I stopped in there one time when I was in town for business, and I I would definitely go there every time I'm in town if I could. So yeah, I was impressed by everything they did, and it's one of those things. Like, I was there for such a short time, you want to drink everything. It's really impressive. I
Yeah.
love what they're
Yeah.
doing, and I can't recommend them enough. If you're happening traveling through Nashville, make them a stop for sure.
Good stuff. We will be at Le Bon Beer Festival in Duluth, Georgia, in I believe early September, and I'm almost positive the Barrique is part of that party. I think
They
they come
usually
out
are,
for that one,
yes.
so that'll be a good time. Brian, I have a cool story here, a parting shot, so to speak. So there is a brewery now, a craft brewery in Abu Dhabi, Brian, and they
Mm,
are the first brewery within 100,000 square miles. So
100,000 square miles.
100,000 square miles. So, the whole region, alcohol is either the total consumption of alcohol is illegal or the production of it is illegal. And even countries that in the area that are a little more lenient on it, it's all imported. None of it had been brewed there. And you've got even like expat bars. We had a buddy, shout out to Seth, that lived over there, and he had to go to the expat bar. Like, I believe there's some that will let like expats or people that aren't natives can drink. And I could be totally mangling this, but I still think it's illegal for, like, if you're a resident born and raised in this country, you can't touch it. If you're an expat that comes in there and can do this, but the brewery is called Craft by Side Hustle, and one of the founders worked for IBM in Abu Dhabi for many years, and he was saying that when he'd go out, he was paying $15 to $20 for these mass-produced beers, and he really missed like the great IPAs that he got and stuff. So he started with I contract brewing, I believe, in the States, and producing it and then taking it over there. And he finally got a spot opened up there. So now there is a craft brewery in the Middle East in Abu Dhabi. And yeah, so craft for the only one within 100,000 square miles. You know how we used to do our Georgia brewery map, and we'd be like, oh man, that place is a beer wasteland. So if you look at the one for like the entire Middle East, there's just like one pin over the whole region.
They're considering beer from the US as local beer because that's
Yeah.
the nearest brewery.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
actually, Europe would be, wouldn't it? So I'm trying to
Probably.
think. They're that far away. I guess they're that far away from Russia, and Russia's got breweries too. I don't know exactly
They
where,
do.
and China does. I'm like, man, that's a lot of territory. Okay.
Yeah. I guess, and you're talking square miles, so that, tightens the actual range up a
Got it.
little bit there.
Yeah,
So
I'm thinking,
there
yes,
may be
that
some
makes a lot more sense.
gerrymandering there for all I know. So, but that's what the article tells me. And Brian, I've never read anything false on the internet, so it absolutely has to be true there. I
Oh,
mean, there's
yeah,
no way
like, if
that it
it's on
can't
the
be.
internet, it goes through very rigorous
It
protocols to
does.
make sure it's true,
Very
so you can
locked. Yeah,
believe it.
it's
Yeah,
validated.
absolutely
It's
true.
validated.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, y'all, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us and tuning in. We greatly appreciate it. If you like what we're doing here, tell a friend to tune in. We would appreciate that. If you really dig us, come sign up at Patreon and support us. Go to patreon.com/beer guys. You'll get some cool swag. We'll invite you to hang out in our Discord chat. You'll get an invite to the after party here to come and have some beer with us. Hang out on camera, which I know is every child's dream. So once you turn legal drinking age, sign up
Mhm.
on Patreon and we'll get you in here. But y'all, we hope that you have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers. Do. Good. Cheers, Rod. Thanks for hanging
Yeah,
with us,
cheers,
man.
Rod.
We appreciate it. Hope you have a good one. Well, y'all, we are going to end the stream here before Instagram boots us off, because that's what it's known to do. Have a good one. Again, if you're a Patreon supporter, come over to the Discord chat, get the link, come hang out and have a beer with us. Have a good one, y'all. We'll see you next week.